We unfortunately live in a world of sequels and remakes. I've stressed on this many times this year because all of the big budget studio movies I've seen in 2024 have all been sequels or remakes, or based on some existing property. Now, clearly, it's not something that the general audience are bothered about because they're the reason why these movies keep getting made. It's not just the producers and directors in Hollywood who are at fault for making the same thing over and over. The consumers are just as guilty. Hell, I'm guilty for it, but I review these movies and I can say wholeheartedly that none of them have been good. And surprise, surprise, Moana 2 falls prey to this disease of sequels and remakes. And you're probably wondering why I saw this if I had a feeling what the outcome would be. Well, in this rare instance, I was expecting better, because I'm a big fan of the first Moana. I think it's been one of the better movies that Disney have released in the last decade. The setting was great, the mythology was awesome, and the characters were extremely fun and likable. Did it need a sequel 8 years later? No. But I was open to it. I didn't mind that this was in the works. Disney Animation haven't been making one sequel after the other constantly. There's been successful original stories like Encanto, and then there's been some flops like Strange World and Wish, but at least they were original. So on the animated side, Disney are doing a decent job at balancing the original with the familiar. And they're doing the exact opposite with the live action movies. So I wasn't really against Moana 2. The world itself is something that can be exposed to limitless ideas. They are explorers after all. The depths of mythology, history and adventure merging as one can provide a breathtaking and spellbinding experience. It also gives us a chance to discover and unearth Polynesian culture on a deeper and spiritual level that would make us viewers more observant and respectful of a culture of which there is not much known about in comparison to the history we learn from school. Yeah, none of that is really explored here. I mean, the ideas they came up with were the most blatant tropes you could think of, that you would probably expect to see in a first draft, not in the final cut. So where do we begin with this? Moana 2 is set 3 years after the events of the first. She is an expert navigator of the seas, who is trying to find new islands and connect with other people. Suddenly, she receives an unexpected call from her ancestor. Moana is told that the reason that no one is connected is because a long time ago, an evil storm god sought power over humans. So he sunk the island that connected all other islands to the depths of the ocean, and Moana's island is also in peril of being deserted, just to give the stakes more jeopardy. So Moana makes it her mission to search for this long and forgotten island, venturing into dangerous waters that will take her on an adventure more perilous than the last. And of course she can't do it without the charismatic demigod Maui, a brand new crew of seafarers, a useless chicken and the pig. Now the thing that I was hesitant about was the people directing the sequel. The first Moana is directed by acclaimed duo John Musker and Ron Clements, who have directed The Little Mermaid, Aladdin and The Princess and the Frog. They understand the whimsical nature of a fairy tale and they know how to balance the comical with the emotional, which is clearly evident in Moana. So them not directing this kind of made me less excited, and their absence proved why they are such good directors, because this movie felt like it had no structure at all. I just wasn't engaged in anything that was happening. In the first Moana, a lot more is happening with less characters involved. Not having Tamatoa the giant crab was a big mistake. There are some cool creatures that we see, but they don't ooze that charisma of Tamatoa. They bring back the Coconut Army just because they can. They have a new set of characters who join Moana on her quest, but they aren't really given enough to do. One almost dies, but that's it. I think the reason why I had a difficult time getting into the story was because it was kind of hard to believe. In the first, it was quite straightforward and charming, but this whole thing about finding a lost island just didn't work. It sounds cool, but the journey was really lacking that excitement. The songs were nowhere near as strong, and that shows how great of a songwriter Lin-Manuel Miranda is. This movie was missing his musical presence as well as the direction. The question in this movie was for the main hero, Moana. What was her goal? What was her purpose, her true calling? It felt like she had found that at the end of the first movie. We knew that she and everyone else would find other people and islands. That was the goal of this movie. Moana had more to prove in the first. She had internal obstacles and family traditions to overcome. She was breaking barriers and following her heart. Her arc changed massively in the first film. In this, she doesn't change at all. She's the same. Everyone is the same. Maui the demigod is fun, but still doesn't really feel like he's changed. Let's talk about The Rock for a minute. It's not been a great 2 years for him. To be honest, it's very rare he's in a good movie, and I'm not talking about the commercial successes. In that regard, he's done pretty well. But I'm talking about genuinely good movies he's been in. Moana might be one of the few, if not the only one. Maui is my favorite performance from The Rock. I mean, you can tell it's him, but I'm looking at someone different and not a shiny, bald head with a t-shirt too tight for his body and muscles covered in baby oil. And just like the first one, he does a good job with the voice acting, as well as the rest of the cast. It was full of life and energy, and they were doing more than enough to make up for a tepid script. The real star of Moana 2 is the animators. They deserve all the praise and accolades. The way they animated the water is just stunning. The pristine turquoise waves rippling so elegantly, expressing a sense of fear and beauty, is a true work of art. The amount of detail and hours gone into making that water look so realistic as it does is not being talked about enough. The animation all round is stunning. They really do capture the beauty of the Pacific Ocean, the vibrant green islands and dazzling night skies. By the way, there is this one character who is some kind of bat god, and I thought she was going to have a bigger role in the story, but she was just there for about 10 minutes before the midway mark, and then never came back. Maybe I didn't see her, but it seems like they forgot about her. But that was the problem with the movie. It was so aimless, like a first draft. They didn't know how to keep the story sharp and tight. For me, only kids will enjoy this. I don't think adults will. There's a lot of humor in here revolving around the animals, and the whole adventure feels like deja vu. It's not really doing anything original. They're treading on the same water, literally. I don't even think they traveled that far. They bumped into the coconut army, so they clearly went in the same direction again. They tried to raise the stakes higher, but what they forgot to focus on was the characters, particularly Moana and Maui, the heart of the story, because they were no different to the way they were in the first movie. This is a 4 out of 10, really disappointing, but that's what you get when you forget to add Tamatoa. Otherwise, this would be 10 out of 10.